Hello and welcome back, guys. So in the last, let's just see where we stopped in the last video. In the last video, we created a controller and views and all of that for adding property to a page. And I'm just going to hit enter here, and we have this view with the next. And we're not going to use all of these things, but we're not going to use all of this, but we're going to use some of them. Eventually, we're going to change all of this to reflect the geography, which is Nigeria. But let's just continue like this for now. Now, what do we want to do? We want to be able to take the details that the user is filling into all of these places. We want to take all the details that have been entered into these places and send it to our controller. We want to send it to our controller action here and then save it into our database. How do we do that? We need to modify our HTML page. Now it's different for each HTML because we're using a template here. If this is coming from a front end person, it's going to be way easier, but because this is a generic HTML page, we'll have to actually go to making certain changes. The first thing we need to do is to specify the model for this class, and to do that, I'm just going to open this up here. I'll come up here and say model. So yeah, model is s6 app.web dot let's see, s6 app.web dot models dot property model. So this is a model for the page, right? And this is standard. I mean, we've done this a couple of times. And after setting the model for the page, we now want to go through the page and set different model properties. Now this is the input for the name of the property, but we're simply going to change this to, let's see, is there a description part? Okay, so there's a description. So for the first one, we're collecting the property name, property price, and telephone. For the property name, input equals property name, but we're going to remove this name property here, and instead we're going to say asp dot for equals, and we're going to say model dot give me a second. So let's look at the account page. Okay, asp.4 should be title. Let's see, asp4. I'll just put title here. What's the next thing on the page? So property name, property price, and telephone. Property price, I'm going to say asp4 should be contact phone number. Let's change this to title case, title. And the next one should be asp4 asp4. Oh, actually this should be price, and I mixed it up here. Sorry. The contact phone number, and this is for price. Great. And this is the pattern, right? We need to go through all of the pages and just put this in. But there's an important thing we need to do is we need to surround all of this in a form. So we need to surround the entire tab content in a form. And like I said, it really depends on the HTML you're working with. So you need to understand the structure of the HTML. So looking at this now, we know that this part here is step 1, step 2, step 3, and finished. So this is step 1, step 2, step 2, and finished. And this tab content is kind of the entire thing here. So all the tabs when you next to it. And then this is tab 1. So we know that this is tab 1, this is tab 2, this is tab 3, and this is tab 4. And then we have a couple of buttons here which says next and finish. So we have a next button and the finish button here. Okay, and we have a previous button here too, and we have the form, the beginning of the form here. Now the form action is post, the form action is add, sorry, and the method is post. Now one of these buttons need to actually submit the form, and we want the finish button to submit the form. So if I remember correctly, I think we set the value to the value of this form should be submit. Let's look at our login page, and here the type is submit. So let's set the type. Type here is button. Let's set it to submit and see if it changes. If it changes much. Alright, let's test this. So to test this, I'm not going to run it this way. I'm going to debug it. So I'll come here because I want to be able to have a breakpoint here and see if the properties I feel are going to reflect. So I'm going to hit this. Okay, so let's go to properties / add, and the property name I'm going to fill new property price. I'm going to fill 500,000, and telephone I'm going to fill in a random phone number, say +23487 blah blah. And I just want to next. What I want to test really is this submit functionality. If I hit finish, I want to see if I'm going to hit my controller, and I did. Now if I look into the property model, let's see. So title says new property, contact phone number says this, and every other thing is null. Okay, the price is 500,000. And since we're sure we can get these into our controller, we can just go ahead and fill out all of the things now. So I'll stop debugging. I'll come back to my HTML, and let's go to the panes one by one. So the first page has the image. We're not going to work on the image yet, so we're not going to do an image upload yet. We're just going to save this without the image. And that's because the image part is pretty involved. There's some background knowledge you need to have before we do that. So let's look at this. So we have a property name here, property price and telephone. Let's change this to phone number. And that's it. Everything on the first tab is good. I'm going to, not you. I'm going to open up the second tab. Let's see. I think this so I think this template was made by an Indian, so the English is not too straightforward. Let's just correct something. See how beautiful feel free to remove this if you want. How beautiful. It's your property. So we have the property description here. This is the text area. So instead of name equals description, we can just do ASP-4 equals description. The state, we're not going to use this yet, so let's just ignore this. Let's go back to our property model, so we'll see what else. So we've got the title, we have the price, we have the description, we need the number of rooms property. So let's come back here and see, is there anything on our UI we can use to capture this? We don't want to collect the state yet, or the city. Okay, we want to know if it's for rent or you're buying it. Let's remove this option. I'm taking this out, but we're not going to use this yet. We're going to come back to it. Where is it to? Where is it to? Let's just leave this. Now, this is the main bed. Label type text, span 9, value. ID is main bed. We're simply going to add our ASP4. Let's add our ASP4 property here. So ASP-4 is equal to number of rooms. Let's take number of rooms. So we're putting number of rooms on this control. So this is a slider control. We could use a regular we can use a regular text box for this, but since this has a really cool slider, so let's just try to use this first. Let's see. I think this works. Instead of main bed, let's change the display to number of rooms. Great. Let's change this to number of baths too. Number of baths, and we can add our ASP4 here. So ASP-4 is equal to number of baths. Awesome. Let's see. We have number of rooms, number of baths. We need a number of toilets. So let's see what this looks like on the view before I duplicate it. Main bed, main baths. We have a property geo here. We don't really need a property geo. So instead of having this property geo, I'm going to take out this property geo part. So I'm going to take this out, and let's see, am I doing this correctly? So this starts here and end here, I believe. So I'm going to take out the entire of this, so the property geo part, and instead I'm going to duplicate this for the number of toilets. So I just copied and pasted it here. I can now have number of toilets here, and then ASP4 will now be number of toilets. Let's see what else. So we have number of toilets now, then the address and the contact phone number. Let's see what the view looks like for address. So these are some of the amenities we can use. We'll just leave these for now. And next, you can put some more images, and you can put a description. So instead of this property video, I'm going to change this to a description. So let's come to the next tab. So we'll just leave all of this now. We're going to the last tab. So this is tab 3. So for tab 3, we just see more details about your property and select multiple images for your property. We're going to leave this because we can need it later. We want to correct this to multiple, and then property video. For this multiple property video, we don't exactly, do we want videos? Okay, it's going to be cool to have videos, so we probably want to leave all of this so later people can put in YouTube links. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and copy the part for the description. So we had a really cool description part before. So I want this whole property description part. As a matter of fact, I think I want just this inner part, so I'm copying the form group, and then we can go back down to just more details about it. And I want the property description to be entered here just below the choose images. So I'll come down here and let's see, I have this here. What I want to do then is I'll create a new div class called sm6. So I'll say div class equals six. I'll close this up and create the corresponding div, closing div. Let's see. Oh, I'm actually creating this inside of another one, and I'm just trying to get an idea of how the how this HTML works. So these are both in a row. No, I don't think I need a new. I think I can just put my form group straight in here without the need for creating another div. So I'll just put my form group here. Save this, clear this. So I'll just say address. So this is just a free form address, ASP4 address. All right, let's go ahead and test all of this now and see if it works. Once again, we're going to be debugging it, so we see if all the details we have entered, if we can actually receive them into our database. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and debug. Okay, so let's go to /property/add. Nope, that's not what I said. It's /property/add, and we're not taking an image yet. So property name, I can just say new property in Lekki. Price, Lekki is expensive, so let's say 6 million naira. 6 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then phone number, I can say +234 blah 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 blah. Awesome. Let's go next. Property description. Let's see, some new really expensive property in a really badly thought out area prone to frequent flooding. So this is because we're being honest, right? We're telling our people what they're really getting themselves into. So number of rooms, let's say, oh okay, so I think this won't work for us. So we might have to change these controls to regular text boxes. So we're going to have to change this to regular text boxes. I don't think these will work. Well, let's just move them about for now. Number of rooms, the number of toilets. Let's say this house has 10 toilets, because I mean, next, step 3. So this address, Lekki, Gongi, etc. And next, let's accept terms and conditions. There should be terms, not terms, and finish. Now we'll hit our controller. Let's look at our model and see which of our file fields were populated. So we see that the number of bats is 0, number of rooms is 0, number of toilets is 10. So we need to go change those controls for number of bats and number of rooms. But we see that our address is okay, contact phone number is okay, description is okay, and all of that. Great. Now let's just go make that slight change to our UI. I think, what tab is that on? That should be on the, oh, it's gone. Wait, the wind. Let's say previous. So on the second tab, okay, so on the second tab, on the second tab we have property description, then so we want to take whatever is in our number of toilets, right? In fact, we don't want all of this. We don't want all of this shade, right? I'm simply going to take out some of these data slider marks. We don't need all of this. Input type equals, let's leave it as a text for now, or I really want it to be a number. So I'm simply going to take this and just replicate it here. So instead of all of this, I'm simply going to paste this here, and then I'll take the ASP for number of bats and just put it here instead. Now I can remove this entire thing here. Same thing for the number of rooms. I can just remove this entire thing. Just paste in this, and ASP4 is going to be number of rooms here, and I think they should work. Great. So it looks like our view, it looks like, I mean, we're not taking all the properties we need to take yet, but this is enough to get stuff into our database. So let's run this once again. Let's debug this once again and see what we have. So I have slash property slash add property name. This time I don't have the patience to type a lot, so I'm just going to hit my keyboard and just try to make sure I have these details in it. So next, let's see, property description. I'm just going to put some random string here. Next, address, let's just put some random address here. Previous, no, we need to, so this is not very visible, we need to do something about it. So number of rooms, let's say number of rooms is an insane number of rooms, number of baths is insane, so number of toilets is insane. So Next, address. Next, I'll just say finish. Hit my controller again, and this time everything should be populated nicely. So I have a number of parts, I have a number of room. Now I'm leaving this as a take home for you guys as an assignment. So your assignment now is to make sure the number of parts cannot be more than a certain number, the number of rooms cannot be more than a certain number, the number of toilets cannot be more than a certain number. And that's it, right? So we have all of this. We're now sure that we can take all of these details from the view into our controller, and I'm going to stop this. I don't like how the page looks, so it's, this feels a bit faint, so I'm going to come to the description, class equals form control. I'm looking for why this one has a highlight around it and the addresses don't. Okay, so I'll just change the class from span to form control, class to form control, and then class to form control. This time I don't have to debug it because I'm sure it works. I just want to see what the view looks like. And yep, if I come here, it's next. Okay, now it has this highlight. There wasn't this highlight around it before, so it wasn't clear. So now that we know that we can take details from, let me just confirm that this is still recording. Awesome. Now that we can take all of these details from the view, how do we put it into the database? Then that's the next thing we're going to do. Well, first let's commit so we don't lose any of our changes. It can be devastating to lose work. So I'm just going to go back a couple of steps. Get status. We have some uncommitted changes. I'll just say clear. Get add dot. Get commit can get property into page. Can get property details from view to controller action. Your commit messages doesn't have to be as long as mine. I just prefer, sometimes when I'm working with other people, I prefer to have really long explicit commit messages so they know exactly what I did. I'm going to push this to dev, push origin dev. Clear. So yeah, what do we do next then? We can bring this into our controller. What we haven't done is we haven't saved it to our database yet. So all of the tests we did, there's nothing in our database yet. And how do we do that? The way to do that is to look at how did we get our users into our database. And let's go and look at our account controller. So our account controller, we first of all validated that the model state is valid, and I'm going to leave this as an assignment for you guys. So I'm currently not validating the data the person is entering. I'm just going to go ahead and save it into the database, which is wrong. Well, you should actually validate that the data the person is entering is correct. We're doing it here. So if someone doesn't enter, say, an email address when they want to log in, our view automatically tells them, hey, you need to enter an email address. I'm not doing any of that right now, and I'm going to leave it as an assignment for you guys to do. So if the person doesn't enter a description, tell the person, hey, you didn't enter a description. If they don't enter a price, tell them you didn't enter a price. I'm not doing any of those things now. There's going to be a correction if I see that most people have issues with it, but you should be able to look at some of the examples from here and do that. So like I was saying, let's look at the register. We created a service called account service, which has a create user method. Let's go in here and look at it. So this is our create user async service class, and we were able to, this is a service class, and we're able to create a user using the service class. We're going to take the same approach for our properties. I'm going to come here and create a class called property service, and within property service I'm going to have a public async task add property, and this add property is going to take a property model. Now, because I need to work with the database here, I need to pull in a few using statements. Because I need to work with the database here, I'm going to create a constructor. So a constructor is just a method that has the class name without any return type. So to create a constructor, I'm going to say, and the constructor is the first piece of code that runs immediately you instantiate a class. So when you say class, this class equals new class, any code in the constructor runs automatically. Now, to inject our database class, we need our database class in the service class because we need to use it. First, I'm going to create a field to store the database class when it comes in, and private read only application DB context. I'm going to call this DB context, and I need to bring in the using statement. Now I'll create my constructor. My constructor is going to be public, but you can have a private constructor, but for this case we need a public constructor. Public property service, and this is what a constructor is really. Just notice there's no return type, and I want to inject. Now this is dependency injection, and we're going to talk more about it, but ASP.NET Core handles this for you. I need to inject an instance of my application DB context. So application DB context. So ASP.NET Core is going to make your application DB context available to this class by default when you create it. So then you can use it to do things like saving. So you can use it to do things like saving files and all of that. I'm just going to rename this. Now, what I need to do is I need to create a new instance of a property entity. So I'm just going to say val property equals new property. And now remember the property entity, which we created a database from. That is what I want to create here. And I can just open this, and I can just fill out the properties. I'm going to say the title should be whatever the person entered, and this is why it's important to validate this model when it comes in, because now if the person did not enter a title, that means I'm saving an empty title. I'm going to say title is model/title. I think I want to open this class down so I know all of the properties. Just drag it to the end here, so I just have like a two view thing here. So image URL should be model.image URL. We're not filling this yet, so you don't want to validate it. Price equals model.price. Description equals model.description. Number of rooms equals model.number of rooms. What else? Number of bats. There are very easy ways of doing things like this using tools like automapper, but for now I'm just going to continue doing it manually. So when we start using automapper, you kind of understand what exactly automapper is doing under the hood. Instead of doing this manual assign to this, assign to this, assign to this, you can actually automate this. But for now I'm going to continue to keep it to reduce the complexity and the number of things you need to keep track on. So address equals model.address. and contact phone number equals model dot contact phone number. I think that's all good. Now after creating this entity, the next thing we need to do is to save it into the database. And to do that, I'm going to say underscore db context dot add async, and I'm going to give it the property. So I'm telling you, hey, add this property to the db context, and I need to await this. And then the next thing I'm going to say await underscore db context dot save changes async, and it is this call that then saves this into the database. At this point, we're almost ready to save this, to save a property into our database. But let's create an interface. And in one of the videos, we talked about why we use an interface, right? So you probably just want to back up a few videos where when we did the video on creating accounts, you probably want to back up to that video to see why we're using an interface. I'm going to go ahead and create a new interface. I'm going to call it iProperty service. iProperty service. Once again, sorry, I forgot to take out the SRC here. Take out this SRC, take out this SRC, and then I'm going to copy. I'll just take this task of add property, and I'll put it in my interface. I want to pull in the using statement, and then I'm going to say, hey, property service inherits from iProperty service. Awesome. Now I can come to my startup. I need to register this in my startup. I think I can collapse this now so I have more space to work with. Now I can come to my startup and say, now I can come to my startup and say services dot add transient. So this is making what's it called? Making ASP.NET Core aware of this service class I have created. And ASP.NET Core can automatically create an instance. So whenever I need the property service, I don't have to go and create it by myself. ASP can just create one and give it to me. To use this, I'm now going to go into my controllers. I'll go into my properties controller, and I want to use this class when someone wants to create a new controller. So once again, I'm going to create a constructor here, public properties controller. I'm going to create a private field to hold my service. Private read only iProperty service. Come on. I'm not sure why IntelliSense isn't putting it up already. iProperty service. So I have my iProperty service, and I'm going to call it underscore property service. Let's put in the using statement. So, and once again, I'm going to inject it into the constructor. This is called dependency injection, and I have an article on dependency injection on my blog. My blog is vnwonah.dev. So I have an article on dependency injection on my blog, which you should read. Anyways, to continue, I'm going to put this in here, underscore here, and just assign it. So I'll say underscore property service equals property service. That works. I can now come here and use it. So I can now say try in case an error occurs. Catch. For right now, I'm just going to catch generic exception, catch exception E. And then whatever happens, I'm going to return my index view. So irrespective of if it succeeded or not, I'm just going to return to the index page. Return redirect to action. and then I'm going to return to the index action. So whatever happens, I'm going to return to the index action. Now this is another assignment for you. If an exception occurs, I want you to return an image, return a message to the same page, which is the add page, with an error message stating what happened. You can get an idea of how to do that from the account controller, where if something goes wrong, I am returning a message that says exactly what goes wrong with the view. So you should change this. When you work on this, don't just return to the index page, actually provide an error message. Now I can come in here and I can say underscore. I want to make this asynchronous, so public async task of I action result. So this is how to make this, because I'm going to be using an asynchronous message method here. Now I'm going to say wait underscore property service dot add property, and I probably want to rename this to add property async, and I just pass in the model. Remember, once again, you need to validate this model when you work on it yourself. Now there's a mistake here. If I come to my property service, I see that the property model I am taking here is not the property. It actually is. So where's the problem? Okay, I see the problem. The problem is in my interface. So I'm going to go to my interface definition, and when I imported, I didn't import property model here, so that's the issue. So I'll just put the using statement here, and that should be fine now. My controller should be happy. I need to bring in system.threading the task here, and I think we should be ready to save our property into our database now. To test this out, I'm not even going to debug. I'm just going to run this. So let's go into our SRC, then our estate app.web project, get status. Now let's just run this. .NET run. There's some warnings. I hear you have a variable you're not using, but that's no problem. At least not for now. And our app is running. Let's see if so. This is our add page. Once again, I'm not very super patient to actually type. Oh, let's see, new house in Lekki. It says the price is 500,000. Phone number to contact is 090-8765-4323. Say next. Property description, some really cool property description to convince you to rent this house. It says this description, number of rooms, it's a 3-bedroom, number of baths, let's say it has 2 baths, and number of toilets, let's say it has 2 toilets too. Next, address is, let's say, somewhere in Lekki Peninsula. Next, let's say finish, and let's see, so finish, we redirected to our properties page. So this is our index page. Now, so this looks like everything was fine. If I come to my database and I look into my properties database, interestingly, it is not here. So something went wrong. So something did go wrong. But because we didn't handle the exception, because we just let the so it didn't save, but because we didn't handle the exception, it just came here. Now let's see what possibly went wrong. We have a breakpoint here. I'm going to stop the app, and let's come to the add property and see what the issue is. I'll put a breakpoint here. So I'll put a breakpoint here, and now I'll debug it. It's confirmed that we're still recording. Okay. So we're now debugging, and property name. This time I'm just going to use a bunch of random strings. Next, description, random number of rooms. Let's see, 111. Let's see. Okay, that's it. 500k for hotels. So address. Let's just fill some random string for the address. Say next, accept terms and conditions, and finish. This time we've hit our breakpoints, and let's see. So our model does have all the things we filled in. Okay. Now we've come into our property service. I put a breakpoint here, and we created a new property entity. So let's confirm that this was created. This all looks good. Okay, I think an error occurred there, an error was thrown there, and let's see what the error message is. Come on. Unable. Let's try to expand this. Oh, the primary key is null, so we didn't set the ID for this property. Let's go and do that. I mean, that didn't make sense. So we need to set the ID. So when we're creating a new property, we can manually set the ID. It's weird. ID equals geo ID. So I have to bring in a namespace here. Geo ID.new weight.toString. Now because we're using string for our because we're using strings for our ID can literally be anything, but it's advised to use, instead of creating an ID yourself, they're going to clash. So it's advised to use a GUID, which is going to generate a random string for you as the ID. Now, the chances of this new GUID generating two identical IDs is, I think, 1 in a billion or 1 in 3 billion. So it's very rare that this is going to, it's extremely rare that two entities in your database are going to have the same ID using this method. Let's debug this once again and just make sure everything works correctly this time before wrapping this up. So I'm going to go ahead and debug again. Here's the add page. Let's use this. And this time, sorry guys, I'm going to just have to use a bunch of random. Oh, this one is going to go to the database, so let's make it look cool. Property name. Property name should be fully furnished duplex in Lekki Peninsula. Property price, let's say this is 10 million naira per annum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The phone number to contact should be 090 6069 45 23. Let's next this. Property description is a beautiful duplex in Lekki Peninsula. Number of rooms, let's say has 5 rooms. Number of baths, let's say has 6 baths, one for each room, and then the one for the guest. Number of toilets, let's say has 6 toilets too. Next, and the address should be Lekki Peninsula Access. And next, accept terms and conditions. Another assignment for you is, if the person doesn't click accept terms and conditions, it shouldn't be possible to submit at all. I think I already hit submit. I mistakenly hit submit, but luckily we have everything we need here. And I'm just going to hit continue. And then when it comes in here, this time let's look at the ID property. Now if we go to the ID property, look at the ID is a very random string, so it's really rare. And this time we can come in here and say add, and then we can say save, and then we can just hit continue to continue running our app. And then we come to the properties page. Now assuming we had implemented this page, one of the new properties we should see on this page should include this one we just added. But to verify that we actually added this, we want to come in here into our database and just execute this. And this time you see that we have one entry in our database, fully furnished duplex in Lekki Peninsula. And so now it's possible for a user to actually create a create a property. And when we want to display these properties to the user, it is this database. So maybe someone comes to our site to look for a property, it is this database that we're going to query to find out what properties are available. I'm going to stop this video here again so it doesn't get too long, and in the next video we're going to look at displaying these properties back to users. Thanks for watching, guys.